Hello and welcome to Bridgewood Online. I'm Pastor Sean, and let me just say this. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. And this is a perfect moment for me to encourage you to hop on and register for one of our Christmas experiences. The 23rd at our Goodrich location or the 24th here at our Clarkston location. Seats are going fast, so we need you to hop on and register your seat, because if we need to add another experiences at either of the campuses, we have time to do that. I also need to let you know that Sunday the 26th, that we are not having church at either of our locations, that we want to just take that time that you guys can spend at home, spend with family. We know that people are traveling, and so that is your time to just be close to friends and family. That means that New Year's Day falls on a Sunday. We know that everybody's going to be up late celebrating the new year coming in, and so we have one experience at either location. 10 o'clock at our Goodrich location and 11 o'clock at our Clarkston location. So mark those down. If you have any questions, you can always go to bridgewoodchurch.com/info. Pastor Kurt, our lead pastor, is coming in just a moment to finish up his series entitled 'Tis the Season. So this is a perfect time to hit like, hit share. Let's get this word out to our friends and family and community, because we need to let them know that the season that they're in is intentional. The season that they're in has purpose in their life. So would you do that today? And now let's welcome Pastor Kurt Demoff, lead pastor of Bridgewood Church.
Hey Bridgewood, my name is Anthony and I'm one of the board members here at Bridgewood Church. Christmas season can be a hectic time for all of us, with all the responsibilities and activities going on, work parties, kids events, not to mention all the activities we have going on here at Bridgewood Church in the coming weeks. And that's why I'm coming to you today. We like to take the first few weeks of December to acknowledge our pastoral staff for all the things they do throughout the year and all the time and energy they spend on activities here at church. There are so many unforeseen sacrifices our pastoral staff makes, giving extra of their time, resources, and often bearing our spiritual burdens. This past week was a great example of how they can spring into action at any moment to serve this community in a really profound way. And they do it all without complaining or expectations of recognition in any way. So if you consider Bridgewood Church your home church and you would like to bless our pastoral staff, we'll be accepting a special offering over the next few weeks in December specifically for them. You can see on the screen right now there are a number of different ways to give here at Bridgewood Church. Again, thank you for your support of our amazing staff. Let's take this opportunity to show them how much we love and appreciate all that they do throughout the year. Thank you.
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to Bridgewood. We are so glad that you're joining with us today. We are one church that meets at a few different locations today, and it is always a joy to welcome those that are watching online and at our Goodrich campus. So come on, Clarkston, put your hands together for our family. Spread out all around. So good to have you. So whether you're online or you're right here with us, we just, Christmas is here. It is here, and we are excited to be able to celebrate with you. There's nothing like having a white Christmas. So I can tell by the look of some of your faces, it is snowing outside, and we are in that season. And I love it because we're talking about seasons, and we're experiencing one of our seasons right now, and we are really excited. So let me just do this real quick, okay? This week is going to be a busy week for everybody, but we want to make sure that you are well aware of how we are celebrating Christmas here at Bridgewood. We have 4 experiences for you to choose from, and I would love for you to invite your friends and your family and your coworkers and everybody that you know to come and join with us for Christmas. You can see behind me, we are getting set up for Christmas. The team has been working incredibly hard to bring, again, another presentation of Christmas that you will not want to miss, and you will be proud to bring people to. It is going to be absolutely amazing. Now, here's the challenge, okay? If you've come to Bridgewood any length of time, you guys are smart. You choose the one service that we have that has seats. All the others don't. They are overcrowded. They're in overflow. And I just want to let you know, our Christmas services are all full except the 12:30 time slot. Okay? Now, I don't want to discourage you from inviting people because God has placed us in this community to be a light to this community, and we never know, when somebody is ready to receive that good news. And this is the challenge that we have, and you can be praying for us, but they are all at capacity. So push people, if you would, to the 12:30 experience, okay? There are seats in the 12:30. We're going to bump up just a tad, one or two of the others, and then we'll pray about and consider if it's just crazy, we may need to do something and maybe add a fifth one. And so thank you so much. You guys are so amazing. You have invited people, and we are just excited about all that God is doing, okay? So let's make it count this week, and let's go to the people that desperately need to hear the hope and the joy and the story of Christmas and make sure that they're here with us. There are so many things going on in that 1 hour experience that is so amazing. So keep getting the word out. Pay attention to social media. We'll let you know if we are doing additional or what we need to do to help for it. And then can I just say again to you, thank you for your generosity. This weekend was packed full of Bridgewood Church giving back to the community, whether it was our Fuji Outreach Ministry that ministers to people right here in our own community, Friday night here with the girls and the boys from HOP, the House of Providence, that are in our foster care system, to yesterday, and Dallas will talk about it then, we had an opportunity to be with one of our families that has a foundation that gives gifts away to families who have lost a mom or a dad within this year. And we went to 3 homes and were able to bless. So it was just like we were giving all weekend, and it was absolutely amazing. How many of you know it's better to give than it is to receive? Come on. It's better to give than to receive. There's just such a satisfaction and a fulfillment that comes when you get an opportunity to give. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and I just am saying this. You know that you can give here in the envelopes in front of you, at the boxes at the doors. Most everybody gives online now, which we love and appreciate. But this week also, I'm just going to be real transparent with you. It has been a week full of incredible giving. And then this week we got the bid in that came in for our outreach home that we're doing for our young adults and our young marrieds. And I looked at it and I about fell on the floor. That prices are crazy right now. And immediately when I saw it, my heart began to feel that fear that just comes over you and that doubt where I got to start holding on to stuff. Like this isn't the time to give it away. Now we need it and we want to hold on. Does anybody experience that when you get a bill in the mail or something like that? That's what we're fighting against in our human nature. And that's why giving frees us more than it does anything else, is it frees us to trust God and believe that God is going to do it. So I'm making a commitment to you. We're never going to stop being generous here at Bridgewood Church, no matter what needs we have and what expansion we need to do. We are going to give to people that are in need, and I thank you for that. Let's be that kind of church. Amen? All right, you ready? Let's wrap this series up. I am so excited to talk again about, I wish, this is like one of those series I wish I had about 6 weeks because I have so much stuff that I wanted to put into this series that didn't make it in. It didn't make the final cut, but I'm trusting and believing that the words that I'm going to say today are not my own, that God is going to use them to speak to us exactly what we need. But we're talking about the seasons of life. And what we're talking about is that life revolves around seasons. Everybody has figured that out by now, that life is never static. It's never the same throughout your entire life, that God ordained the seasons. He put the sun and the moon to order time in such a way that it would never stay the same, that there would be light and then dark, and then there would be fall and there would be summer. That is how God orchestrated it. But the same is true in our life, that your life is never going to be the same. And I'm coming to this place in my life. I'm finally here. I'm definitely not where I want to be, but I am way further than I've ever been to wrapping my arms around embracing the seasons of life and really appreciating them. I am really glad that it's not sunny every day. I really am, because I'm learning to trust God on the rainy days and the snowy days. I'm learning that you can't always live on this high mountaintop, that God meets us sometimes more intimate and more personal in the valleys than he ever will on the mountaintops. And maybe I've just come to this place in my journey of faith that I'm finally here where I'm just loving God in every moment and in every season, that he doesn't disappoint, he doesn't let us down, that he is in control of everything, like we're going to talk about today. And so I'm praying today that somehow, some way, you're going to come to the place in your faith journey where you're going to embrace the seasons of life. And you're going to find God in every one of those moments. And so let me take you one more time to our theme verse. Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 and 11 says this: there is a time for everything. There's a season for every activity under the heavens. He has made everything beautiful in its time. And so if you've been tracking with us, all right, you know in week number 1, we talked about there's a season for everything. There is a season for everything. Every season in life matters. The pleasurable ones, the painful ones. Every season, God is using and writing the story of our lives. And so we looked at how God is with us in the season. Sometimes when we don't even understand why God has us in that season. How many of you know there is a time and a season for everything? The Bible says there's a time to plant and there's a time to pluck. How many of you have been able to tell the difference in your life? There's a time to plant and there's a time to pluck. There's sometimes you got to let go, and there's sometimes you got to put seed into the ground. And do you know the difference in your life? Do you know when God is doing that? Then last week, we wrapped ourselves around this idea that there's a time for everything. So not just a season, but even in the season, you can see that God is orchestrating every minute and every second of time. And we discovered there's 2 words in the Bible for time. One is chronos, which is what we get a chronology from. And so the minutes and the days and the hours, the seconds, we understand our watch, we understand we're limited by time. But then God included this idea because he is eternal and he's limitless. He does not bound himself to time. He always was and always will be. That there's kairos time, which is the opportune time or the perfect time. So God isn't in a hurry or a rush because he's operating on a totally different time length than we are. We're limited because our time is ticking. And we do have a beginning and an end, but he does not function that way. And so he shows up in our life, and he's never early sometimes, and he's never late, but he's always right on time. And we looked at how Christmas is that way. Christmas was right on time. It was right exactly when God said it needed to be in history, and he brought Jesus into the world as a light in the dark world, and said, this is going to be the time right now, and it's going to happen. And we made this declaration last week, and I hope that you've been making this declaration over your life all week, that the best thing for me, God is going to do the best thing for me at the right time. How many of you still believe that this week? Like nothing changed. God didn't change. He's still going to bring you the best thing at the right time in your life. And we had 2 walkaways that we walked out of here with last week. Number 1, don't try to help God out. God does not need our help. And the messes that we make in life often are when we get involved and we try to rush God, we try to hurry him up, and then don't put God on a schedule because his schedule is not our schedule. So when things seem like they're slow, they're not slow to him. When things seem like, man, this just doesn't fit in my life right now, God says, no, it fits because I can see the beginning from the end. You can only see your current reality. Trust me, the picture fits. Just trust me. And it's another lesson on trusting God. So let's get to the third one as we wrap this series up. And it's this. It's found in verse number 11. It says this: God makes everything beautiful in its time. Say this with me: everything. He makes everything beautiful in its time. Let's wrap ourselves around what the Bible is telling us. Let's wrap ourselves around this idea for a few minutes that not only is there a season for everything and a time for everything, but God has a plan for everything. He has something beautiful at the end for every single one of us. And everything is included in God's plan. And we'll talk about what that exactly means, because I'm not sure we always think that everything is in God's plan. So Solomon, here's what he's doing in the book of Ecclesiastes. If you just want a quick idea of why was Ecclesiastes written, because Solomon, the wisest man in all of the world, is trying to figure out life, much like you and I do. What is the meaning and the purpose of life? So he's running life through these tests to try to discover what is the meaning and purpose. Where do we find fulfillment in life? So here's what he does. He looks at work. He says, man, if we work and pour ourselves into our careers, will we find the meaning and purpose of life? And he realizes, no, that's not it. What about wealth? If you get all the money in the world and you could spend limitless, would you have pleasure in life? He said, oh, but that pleasure would be just for a moment, and then life is over. It's all vanity. It's all smoke and mirrors. It doesn't really matter. What about pleasure? What about just being able to do whatever you wanted to do and all of that? So he runs life through all these tests, and then he finally comes to the conclusion at the end of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, and he says, here's what my conclusion is. When I looked at life, when I experienced life for myself, and I tried to find the true meaning and purpose in life, here's what I've discovered. Here's my conclusion. He says, fear God and keep his commands. Fear God and keep his commands. And then he says, God is in control of everything. So after he went through and he had success and he had failure, he had pleasure and he had pain, but he looked at it in everybody else's life too, and he said, it's just all vanity. It's only here for a moment. And why is it vanity? Because he said, all of us have the ultimate equalizer, which is death. Death is for everyone. The last time I checked, 1 out of every 1 person will die. That's the stats, okay? Nobody escapes it. So life is here for a minute, whether you get 60, 70, 80, whether you get 6 years or whatever. He says you can have whatever you want, but the reality is at the end, it's death for everybody. Now where's the meaning and purpose? And unless you discover God and realize that God is limitless and that his plan doesn't come to an end, his plan is eternal, that you realize if I fear God and keep his commands, at the end, he's going to make everything beautiful in his time. And so that's the conclusion he comes to, but he's helping us to wrap our arms around the sovereignty of God. And here's what I have discovered about the sovereignty of God. There's nothing more stressful, yet more satisfying than the sovereignty of God. There's nothing more stressful because life has this ebb and flow of good news and bad news. Life has an ebb and flow of pain and pleasure. It has an ebb and flow. Just when you think, man, I've got my arms around life, the season changes, right? Like it's so hard for us to figure out that God is in control because we think He's in control when everything's going good, but then we think He's out of control when our life goes upside down. And so we're just back and forth between I'm trusting God and then, oh God, where are you? And God, I know you're in control. And then it's like, oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Right? I live there, you live there. That's the tension that we live under. And so to wrap our minds, but here's what I want to say to you, and I hope you hear this today. For you to grow close to God, you are going to have to figure out the sovereignty of God for yourself. You will not get close to God unless you understand His sovereignty. And by sovereignty, here's what I mean. He is in control of everything from beginning to end. He's in control. He was in control from the beginning. He's in control right now in the middle. He's in control at the end. He is never out of control. And Solomon is reminding us that our great and powerful Almighty God is in control of all things, so you can trust Him. He's guiding and governing all of creation towards His plan. He's using nations, He's using people, He's using time and space, He's using creation itself. All of it is working in His hands to His ultimate plan. He's governing and He's guiding all of life. And so here's what He wants us to do. You ready for it? Here's what we're to do now. If we can truly wrap our arms and our minds and our hearts around the sovereignty of God, He's saying, okay, now here's what you do if you can do that. I want you to rest and trust and find comfort that I'm in control. How many of you have a difficult time sleeping when someone else is driving? Especially on a day like this. Lisa's shaking her head. She can sleep anywhere. Like, I am one of those like, if I'm not in control and someone else is driving, I am not going comatose, all right? Man, that gives me the weirdest feeling in the world, like I'm out of control, or what if something happens? I can't grab the wheel, I can't scream, I can't do whatever's going to need to be done. It's almost like Solomon is saying, I want you to sleep. I want you to close your eyes because Father God is at the wheel. And He's guiding and governing your life. And you can trust Him. You can trust Him. Now you say, okay, well, man, that's great, but how do I do that? Well, that's what the last 2 weeks have been about. And then the exclamation of this week, he says, okay, if you want to rest and you want to trust and you want to find comfort in God, here's how you do it. Number one, understand there's a season for everything. So don't get freaked out when the seasons change. Don't think God is here one minute and gone the next. Just trust Him. Second, there's a time for everything. That God knows the perfect time for you. And not only does He know the perfect time, He's going to deliver to you the best things in life at the right time. So trust Him. So rest in Him. So find comfort in Him. See how it's building towards this? It's all building towards God, if you're here in this moment. And not only this, I want you to see something, because Ecclesiastes is poetry. Okay, it's Hebrew poetry, which is tough to understand. Poetry in itself is tough to understand. That's why nobody is a poet. Okay, the only poet stuff I use is somebody else, and then I write it down in a card and give it to someone else. But this is also wisdom literature. So when an author would write something at the beginning of a sentence and at the end of a sentence, it was on purpose. It was intentional. And what he's using it as a bookend to say, here's my point, and then I'm going to emphasize this point at the end, and then everything in between the beginning and the end is about this. Look at verse number 17, because in verse number 1, he says there's a time for everything, there's a season for every activity, and then he repeats it at the end in verse 17. I said to myself, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, meaning there's going to be an end, for there will be a time for every activity. So he caps it at the end, he says it in the beginning, and he says everything between these verses is this point. God is in control of everything. Don't you forget it. Don't think for 1 minute that he's out of control. Life is not random. It's not haphazard. It's not a product of chance or luck. Let's just cross our fingers. Oh my gosh, he just wound the world up and then walked away, and it's just functioning haphazardly, and then who knows where all of this ends. There are so many people that's their mentality. That's their view of God. He just wound up the world, said, okay, if you want choice, if you want free will, then here you go. And then he just stepped up, and he's just kind of observing everything like a cruel person that could step in and do something but chooses not to because you get your own choice. Now, if that's your view of God, okay, you're not going to trust and rest and find comfort. You're going to be a ball of stress and a wreck. So he says, here's another option, though. You can trust in the sovereignty of God, that God is in control, and he's not just in control, he's in control of every minute detail. He's in control of the time, everybody. The time that you actually do something. And if we didn't get it enough, this theme is all throughout the Bible. Can I just show you a few other places where this theme is emphasized from the front of the book to the back of the book? Proverbs 16. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. The way that they would make decisions in the Old Testament was dice. And they would roll dice, and that would make their decision for them. And they would kind of believe at that moment that whatever the dice lands on, that's the decision that we're going to make. But here's what Proverbs, the writer of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Solomon, again is saying, oh, you could roll the dice, but God's in charge of how the dice land. And they will land exactly the way he wants them to land. So you can roll it, but he's making the final decision. Acts 17, verse 26. From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth. Watch this. And he, God, marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their land. Like if you go back to the beginning of time until now, God has ordered the appointed time for everything in history and put a boundary to everything that we've experienced. It's not haphazard, everyone. He didn't just wind it up and walk away. Ephesians 1:11. For in him we are also chosen, having been predestined to the plan of him who works out, say it with me, everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. So from the front of the book to the end of the book, this theme is throughout the whole thing. God is in sovereign control of everything. You can trust him. You can rest in him. You can find peace in him if you believe that he's in control of everything. If you want an illustration of that, read through Joseph's life. Whenever I'm struggling with the timing and the seasons of life, I read Joseph's story. Genesis 37 through 50, 13 chapters. It all ends in chapter 50. And here's the conclusion that Joseph comes from. What you all intended to harm me with, God turned around and used it for good, for the saving of many lives. What was he saying? God was in control the whole time. Through every season, through every jail cell, through every missed disappointment, through everything that I went through, every pain moment of my brothers rejecting me, God was in control. He never let go of the steering wheel, and it all worked out beautiful in its time. And what was the time? When he was the one that was second in command over all. It was the perfect time. And God used every activity in his life to bring him to that moment. God is in control. Verse 11, he has made everything beautiful in its time. Everything. Okay, listen to me. He makes the good things and the bad things. He makes the pleasure and the pain. He makes the desirable and the undesirable beautiful in its time. Okay, now this is where about 3/4 of people are going to tune out. Okay, I can see how God uses the good things, but I don't understand how God uses the bad things. I don't understand how God uses the pain. I don't understand how God uses the things that are awful in my life. Now, let's be clear. He doesn't cause it, he uses it. Meaning he's not going to step in and overtake your will, but it's all in his control. So you can make whatever decision you want, but he's the one that's orchestrating those decisions. And if you read Ecclesiastes 3, it's really the Romans 8:28 of the Old Testament. Romans 8:28, he works all things together for good to those that love him and are called according to his purpose, meaning God says it's all going to work out for good if you trust me, if you put your faith in me. He says, I want you to get this because not everything in life's going to flow the way that you think it's going to flow. Is that not the Christmas story, everybody? Like Jesus came into this world, he wasn't received. He was rejected. He was misunderstood. He was treated with all sorts of pain. He had everything in his life in many moments working against him, and yet his Father was in control. And it took all the way to the end of his life. Actually, he died, and if you look at the story, you're like, this story had no purpose. You don't get it until after he dies, that he resurrects and comes back, that God makes it beautiful in the right time. You would have ended the story and said, what was the meaning and purpose of Jesus' life? And God said, oh, no, the story's not over yet. And you might be saying that about your life, and God's going to tell the same thing to you. Your story's not over yet. I got the final word of your story. So you either trust me or you try to work it out yourself. And here's what Solomon says, even through the difficult times, even through the pain times, even through the seasons we don't understand, we're to enjoy life, not just endure it. We're to enjoy life, not just endure it. Look what he says in verse number 12. Same chapter, verse number 12. And I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be taken away. God does it so that people will fear him. God doesn't want you to allow the webs and flows and the consequences and the events of life to discourage you, that you miss out on life. That's probably one of the greatest joys yesterday, as we got to go and bring people who are in the moment of grief and pain, losing somebody this year. The last family we went to, it was 6 weeks ago. 2 boys and a wife. And it's like, for a moment, we got to see joy and them enjoying something even in the midst of a season of incredible pain. And do you know that that is God's plan for you and I? That in all pain there's a purpose, and in everything, even in the seasons where we don't understand why and we don't have it all figured out, God just saying, trust me. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. But to enjoy it and to find life. But yet we can be so frustrated, can't we? We can be so frustrated because we don't understand, God, how's this going to work out? And I don't see good coming out of this. And God, you were far away. You could have done something about this. And those frustrations are there. But here's the deal, everyone. Frustrations in life can lead us to God. Because I want you to see a verse that's added on to verse number 11 that I haven't included in the text until now. But it says this, He has made everything beautiful in its time. But that's not where it stops. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. Here's the deal, everyone. God has put eternity in the hearts of everyone. He is giving us a longing and a desire for something that is better and bigger than anything on this planet, that is bigger than what you and I can comprehend. And he says, in your frustration, if this will lead you to God, it will actually lead you to the fact, to the realization of eternity, that when this life comes to an end, it doesn't come to an end for those of us that put our faith in Jesus. There is beautiful in time. And you and I can't fathom eternity because we live in a temporal world. But he says, I'm telling you as clear as I'm standing here right now that there is something in the souls and the hearts of people that cause them to think there's got to be something more than this life. We know that as hope. We know that as the thing that brings us joy. The thing that gives us endurance when we go through the toughest moments of life. I remind myself, this is not the end. He makes everything beautiful in His time. And I can't fathom eternity, and I can't fathom His good plan because I'm bound by reality. But He says, if I could just open up your eyes to see what I have for you in eternity, your mind couldn't even understand it. So on this week before Christmas, there is nothing that God wants to give us as a gift more than for us to trust in His sovereignty. And for you to live in such a way that you know every moment of every day He is in control of everything. Nothing is going to happen to you that is by chance. Nothing's going to happen to you that's outside of His ability to turn, to manipulate, or to cause good to come out of it. That's the God that we serve. That's the God who came to this planet. That's the God that we're embracing in this Christmas season. And we're about ready to begin a new season. A fresh year, fresh start. Rather than carrying our why, rather than trying to figure out, why don't we just start a brand new season and say, God, it's a new season, it's a new day, it's a new start. And help me to just wrap my arms around this idea that you're in control of everything in my life. So I'm going to find true rest. I'm going to find true peace. I'm going to find true joy in every moment, because I know that you're ordering every step that I take. Would you stand with me? The band's going to come, and we're going to sing a song. And it's not just a song, but it's really the truth of God's word, that He makes a way where there seems to be no way. Meaning God can do things that you and I can't do. That's sovereignty, everybody. That's sovereignty. God can make a way where there is no way. You say, how is good going to come out of this? Well, trust Him. He'll make a way. Well, how's this going to work out in his timing? It seems like I missed my opportunity. No, trust him. He'll make a way. God, but I just don't understand. I don't understand this season that I'm in, and I just don't know where you're taking me. Just trust me. Just trust me. I'm going to make a way. Just like I did for Joseph, I'll do the same for you. So today, this Christmas season, can we just get our arms around the sovereignty of God and say, God, grow me up a little bit more to the realization that my Father has his hands on the wheel of my life. He knows what he's doing and why he's doing it. And it will be beautiful in its time. So I want you to sing this with all of your heart. And then Pastor Dallas is going to wrap this up. All right? Father, thank you. You're in control of everything. Not some things, but everything. So God, today I'm asking that we would receive the greatest gift, which is to wrap both of our arms and our minds and our hearts around the sovereignty of God. This world seems like it's out of control, but it's in perfect control for you, for your plan. When the world was the darkest and they thought you were the farthest away, at the right time you sent Jesus. God, I'm believing that at the right time, in the right moment, you had something beautiful. More than I can imagine, more than I could have thought of, will blossom out of our circumstances, the events of our lives. So we trust you. You're the way maker, God. You make a way for us in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Pastor Kurt, for that word today. And you know, church, I want to encourage you to go back and review these messages. Let them sink deep into your heart. I know that they have marked my life. I know that they have encouraged me in my season of life, because each and every one of us is in a season. And God has purpose in every season that you are in. So again, let me encourage you to hop on and register for a seat at one of our Christmas Eve services, just so we have a pulse on how many people are coming. And if we need to add another experience, we know that Christmas Eve is a wonderful time to invite friends and family, and we want to be able to have plenty of room for all of your friends and your family here at Bridgewood Church. Also, let me remind you that on Sunday the 26th, the day after Christmas, we will not be having services at either of our locations. We want that time to just be for you and your family, all of our volunteers here at Bridgewood that serve so diligently, to be able to spend time there at home. And so, no service the 26th, and then on January 1st, there is only one experience at either location, 10 o'clock at our Goodrich campus and 11 o'clock here at our Clarkston campus. So until I see you again, I pray that you have a very Merry Christmas, and we will see you on New Year's Day.